Hi everyone, Alicia here from Growth Match, and today we're hearing from Alexandra about how startups and bootstrapped companies can increase their website traffic and decide how to pick and prioritize their marketing tactics. Let's start with a brief introduction. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you specialize in?
So I'm Alexandra. I work as a SaaS growth marketing consultant, but these days, basically my whole background is in everything organic marketing. So that's content, SEO, email, social, whatever qualifies as organic. But these days, I've actually been working with startups a lot as a fractional marketer. So we work on everything from the very basics on defining your positioning, your messaging, and then later on, finding out which marketing strategies and tactics work for your target audience. And with a lot of these companies, I also help them with the hands-on execution for these strategies.
Thanks, Alexandra. And what is your experience so far working in the marketing space?
So I've been working for almost 6 years in the SaaS space. Now I do have a couple of industries I specialize in just because that's where my background is and I enjoy doing work more in those spaces. And specifically, I'm in this productivity space. So anything project management, time tracking tools, note-taking tools. I have a client, it's basically a background noise removal tool. So kind of this space. Then it's MarTech, so anything in the marketing space, obviously, since I'm a marketer myself, and HR tech. Now, I do have a couple of other interests as well. So I do tend to work with companies, again, solely SaaS companies in industries such as tools for designers, for UX designers, for developers. So it depends, but usually I try to stick with these industries. And I work exclusively with SaaS companies, mostly startups, as well as companies that have been in business for a while. But I do kind of, looking at my portfolio, it's been mostly bootstrap companies. So you could be in business for 10 years and then you just adopt like a slower growth process, as opposed to, companies that have the investors to back them up and maybe grow a bit faster.
That's great. And what is the most common mistake you see these people making when it comes to their marketing? And how do you see that being avoided?
With startups in particular, you have this common scenario where it's a founder or two founders, co-founders, who kind of have an idea of what they want to do in terms of marketing. Now, if they know their target market super well, usually the tactic they have in mind is probably going to work for them. But in a lot of situations, they haven't fully done the research into their target market. Maybe they're not themselves part of that target market, if that makes sense. So what happens is, they just hear about how SEO is the thing, how they need to do content or something like this. And basically, they reach out to me, asking for a content strategy. But the very next thing I do is to actually look and see if that's really the best thing for them to do. Because another common mistake that these startups do is to really focus a lot on lead generation. So they have a set number of leads, like 5,000 leads that they need every single week. This, if you ask me, is not super realistic, and you don't need this many leads at the beginning. And the main problem is that, for instance, you cannot use SEO or content most of the time since they are primarily um, long, um, they take a lot of time to work. So they're a long-term play. So you cannot use them to generate leads instantly, if that makes sense. Of course, there's ways of making content work for you for like instant lead generation. For example, if you pair it with like a partnership strategy or with account-based marketing. So in this case, it can work. But again, ideally, you need to either work with a marketer or just um, get to know your target audience, target market better to really see, which tactics are going to work for them. And as a quick tip, I think really the best thing to do is to really sit and talk to your target market and get an idea of their pain points, their needs, what jobs to be done they have, and the websites they visit, what makes them make a purchase decision, uh, what can convince them to try out a tool, and these small things. Because once you have an idea of these aspects, it's super easy to then just put together the marketing strategy.
Wow, that makes so much sense. I love how you're going back to the basics of really understanding your customer and using that to get out of the weeds of all of these tools and tactics that are all over the place. That's amazing. And so when you start working with somebody on this, what kind of results do you end up achieving for them? And what is it about what you do that gets them there?
So it depends. If we're working on just the very basics, like the positioning part, I've had situations where actually doing the research into what this target market truly needs ultimately led to us just having to revisit the entire product before jumping into marketing, just to make sure the product first catered to the needs of these people we were targeting. In other situations, when we start with a good enough product, if that makes sense, and then we start doing the research, we're able to just like craft the positioning that really works for us at the beginning. Now, when it comes to messaging and positioning, these are things that change in time. For example, in my experience, I think that what matters the most at the beginning, when you're just launching in the first or second year that you've been in business, what matters the most ultimately in terms of positioning is really standing out, because you don't have a lot of those like reviews and ratings and awards to back up the claims that you make. So you can't call yourself the best software for whatever, because you don't have, again, that proof to back it up. So you need to kind of play with, the other unique selling propositions that you have. So this is in terms of, the very basics. Then the next step again is really figuring out which strategies you need to focus on. And I guess like the biggest win here is making sure that you are targeting and focusing on two or three core marketing tactics or marketing channels during a year or during your first 2 years. This way, one, you're saving a lot of money that you would otherwise invest in maybe ads or maybe content that's not necessarily going to work for you from day one. And two, you're also able to fully focus on these channels. So this is something I try to do with my clients a lot. If you're going to try something, for example, if you're going to try LinkedIn ads, you need to go all in with those ads. And this means trying different ads, pairing these ads with maybe an account-based marketing tactic, um, having maybe partnerships with that. It depends, but just making sure that you're not only running 5 ads and then calling it quits because you're not seeing the results from there. And then with a lot of my clients, we also work on again, like I said, the actual execution. So, for example, I do have a lot of projects going around in the content space. So, building content strategies, like editorial calendars, refreshing content. So, this is like a big win I see a lot of the times, where I start with a pre-existing blog, and then we refresh everything. We merge posts with delete posts if needed. And what I'm basically doing is, instead of just writing new content and basically investing a lot of money into producing new content, you're taking whatever you have and making that work. So you don't end up with 100 posts on your blog that don't work for you, that don't generate any leads, any traffic. And instead, basically, we're starting with whatever you have and we are making it productive.
Love that. I love how you focus on really getting the results and minimizing the cost because I know that could be a
Yeah.
huge headache, especially for earlier stage companies. So, if somebody is interested in getting these results and working with you, how can they explore that?
So my recommendation is usually to start with one or two, sometimes two, introductory calls, just to see exactly where you are at now, what you've been doing so far, if you have any idea on what might work for your target market, and then we can actually start looking at the data, every kind of result you've had in the past. If you have the research into your current users, into your target market, so that we can ultimately start prioritizing exactly what's going to work for you. I also do have a package if you're interested in just starting with the content strategy part. But again, even if we do start working on that, we are first going to look at whether that tactic specifically is going to work for you.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Alexandra, for chatting with me today. And if you are interested in connecting with Alexandra, definitely check out growthmatch.com to visit her profile and schedule that discovery call. Thank you so much.
You too.